That's the conversation you have to have about abortion.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can't shy away from it just by hiding behind your party or hiding behind your labels if we're going to figure out how as a country and as a people we're going to move forward.
Right. And
I agree with that.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Leftist Losers Show, where we point out all of the losers of the left. And today, we're talking about Bill Maher. So Bill Maher's just been on a losing streak for the last few months. So he's definitely been our loser of the left for quite a while now. And he just continuously has on people who are a lot smarter than him, or at the very least, if they're not smarter, they just have a lot more information regarding the current events that he wants to talk about on his shows, and they make him look silly. He makes himself look silly in doing so, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I will say, I'll give him credit. I applaud that he'll have these people on that disagree with him and tend to know more and make him look silly. So I'll at least give him that, right? The information's getting out there. He's giving them a platform, so we should all applaud him for that. However, we should also point out that he kind of represents a lot of the opinions on the left, and when he makes himself look silly, I mean, we should use him as an example of why the left is silly in a lot of these situations. And with regards to this clip, he was talking about the Trump assassination, and he had Byron Donalds on, like I said. And Byron was just, he made a couple comments about why he felt what happened, and Bill Maher, not liking the whole God intervention thing. He tried to clap back on that, and Byron made him look silly. And I think he is silly for that. And so we're just going to go ahead and jump right into this clip, and I'm going to let you guys be the judge for yourselves.
Black on the air, Larry Wilmore, and the Republican Congressman from Florida's 19th District, Byron Donalds. Byron, Larry. Okay. Well, first of all, you're a religious person. Do you want to have a rebuttal to what I just said on the editorial? I may have taken a shot or two at religion.
Two things. First, you don't have to believe in God to see God's miracle in your life from a believer. Whether you're an atheist, no matter what you believe in, whether I even like you or not, I can recognize the fact that something happened that staged you away from death or pain or a grave circumstance. I equate it to the hand of God moved on your life. That's the first thing. Second thing, you kind of made it sound like Donald Trump is Thanos, man. Like, nobody's trying to make him into like a demigod. He doesn't have the magical gauntlet, but you do got to recognize the fact that literally, and I talked to him about it, the way he turned his head at the podium, which he typically will do, it was this much. And you have to acknowledge that it's not just luck. I do believe millions of Americans
that's just luck.
God's hand is on it.
I think that's the difference between how we see it. But, okay.
Something else to consider too. I know a lot of leftists like to buy into the simulation theory thing, and if you're one of those people that buys into the simulation theory and you're watching this right now, I just want you to think about it, right? Like if you think that there's some kind of alien higher power or some kind of alien being, right, that's super intelligent or way above us in thinking, and they created some kind of computer simulation that is the world that we live in, realize what you're saying, right? You're talking about creationism, right? Like, what's the difference between that and saying that some guy or some entity, being God, created the universe? Like, what's the difference? The only difference is you're assigning the characteristic of it being computer coding because you have the perspective of knowing what computers are in today's day and age, and that's the only difference. Like, I would be willing to bet if computers were a thing back when Christianity and these other religions started popping up, like they might attach that same kind of characteristic to it. So just realize, like, you're not thinking about some new crazy religion or idea about the universe. Like, you're basically just expressing the exact same idea, just with modern context around it, basically, right? But that's not what they're talking about. I'm just making their point that, people see the universe in different ways, right? And I think with the relation to the, people talking about it was, God's hand saving Trump. I mean, how could you not think that? Look at where that bullet. There's a video going around on Twitter. I want all of you to go check out. I'm going to link it down below, where they did they wireframed Trump's head and in the video and attached it to the video, same way they do like CGI stuff. And they showed the path of the bullet. And the way they were able to figure that out is based on the fact that it hit him in the ear at the specific moment in the video. And they just leave that path there. And you can see that if he had not turned his head, that bullet was going straight for his right eye socket. That would have killed him. That's a kill shot right there, especially with the firearm that the shooter was using. He was using a 5.56. It's now been confirmed it was an AR-15. And yeah, that would have killed him easily would have killed him. And he turned his head at the absolute last second and did that. Now, when people talk about it was God's hand, they're not talking about some guy on a cloud coming down and, turning his head for him. They're talking about the fact that for whatever reason, that specific moment was when Trump decided to look at the chart and it worked out in his favor and he lived. And that's in itself a miracle. You can call it luck, but I mean, what is luck, right? You're just saying it's just coincidence, but there's a lot of coincidences that have to be involved for that to all work out that way. And I don't know, just even if you're not religious, I think you could see it. Well, it's at least crazy. At the very least, it's insane that worked out that way, right? That he missed only because Trump turned his head at the last second. And that's wild, however you want to look at it. But anyways, let's continue this clip.
We just see that differently. Some people see, there's this order and everything, and some people see randomness. Right. What about the guy behind him who got shot? Because,
Tragedy.
I know, but like you say, God's not happy with that guy? No, but it's like, how do you justify that? Why did God
It's like, whew, good job, Jesus. Wait, what? Jesus? No, there were two. Oh. It wasn't just, there were two.
I can't say that I can justify why, I can justify why God would do something and take somebody's life if we want to go the route of saying God's the one that determines all of that, right? But what I can say is that Corey Competore, the guy who died, he was an absolute hero because of, the just simple fact that he was a firefighter, which means he had to have saved a lot of people's lives just doing that job alone, or at least helped people out doing that job. From my understanding and from the reports and from what his family said, he dove over his family to save them from the bullets. Now, nobody's faster than a bullet, but if he heard a gunshot and then reacted by trying to shield his family, who's to say that he wasn't acting under God's direction? Who's to say that God wasn't? You got to think about how quick that happened, right? A couple seconds. There was no time to think. It was just instinct, right? So who's to say that instinct isn't the voice of God or whatever, telling him to shield his family and protect them? And in fact, God saved their lives through the work of their father and husband. Or I'm not sure exactly what all of his family was there. I know his daughter was there, I believe, because she posted about it. But who's to say that's not the case? But, it's very frustrating. People like Bill Maher, they want to go out and cast doubt upon people who have religious beliefs, and then try to make you justify it when you can't. How are you supposed to justify? That's the whole idea. That's the thing, right? If God is all knowing, like, how are you supposed to understand his motives? And you really can't, right? Like, you can try and interpret them and try to follow the teachings of your religion to be as close to God as possible, but you can't sit there and claim that you know why. That would make you like a god yourself or a prophet or something, right? And I don't think I don't think people are claiming that. They're just saying that it's a miracle that Trump somehow turned his head at the last second. And I would argue that the most godly act that somebody could commit, or the most heroic act somebody could commit, is what Corey did. He dove on his family to stop to protect them from the bullets, and he lost his life for that. And I don't think there's a more honorable way that you could lose your life. And I don't say that it's a good thing it happened to him, but I, if I was in that situation, I would hope that I would have the balls to protect my family and have the instinct to do it, or have God tell me to do it, or whatever. We're never going to know what went through Corey's mind, but I promise you it wasn't much, because there wasn't time to think about it. It wasn't like, oh shit, should I do this? Do I do it? No, he just instinctually did it immediately. And he paid the ultimate price for that. But in turn, he saved his family, potentially, right? So he should be honored for that. And I think it's kind of silly that, Bill Maher wants to see, again, he's trying to focus on Trump and use this guy's death as an argument without actually putting any thought into what that guy did and why he died.
No, never mind. Maybe.
What is God's answer to that? Shit happens. I can't be everywhere. It's just okay. All right. Let's go.
Although I will have to say,
it's like the abortion thing. The wonderful discussion, very entertaining. And by the way, I think that's very healthy to see that. What?
The only thing I'll add to that conversation is that's the conversation you have to have about abortion.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can't shy away from it just by hiding behind your party or hiding behind your labels if we're going to figure out how, as a country and as a people, we're going to move forward.
Right. And
I agree with that.
Can I just say how cool-headed Byron Donalds is? He continues to impress me, and I hope that he continues to be involved in politics, because the guy is pretty based, and I don't say that in the cringy, modern take. I just mean the guy he's solid. He keeps a level head, and I think he actually critically thinks about his ideas. And I just, it's heavily respect that. And for somebody like Bill Maher to sit there and kind of like poke fun at his beliefs and say that you're silly for thinking that, and especially in front of a crowd on live TV, and just to see Byron not even seem phased and just like, yeah, okay, whatever, buddy. Just impressive. I think it speaks volumes about him and his character. But anyways, what I'm trying to get to is Bill Maher. You can just see the disgust on his face and the frustration that his crowd, the people he's got in there in the audience, is clapping constantly for Byron and like loudly cheering for him. And then when Bill Maher says something, it's like whatever. Like it's his crowd, it's his show, and you can tell he's frustrated. It's not going the way he wants it to.
Is the Trump shooter, who has been described as a quiet, lonely kid who was bullied in school, an example of how boys in America are in crisis? Yeah, I think there's been many books about it. Men in crisis, and if you look at the statistics, I mean, there's a lot of information about girls too, that would lead one to believe that young people are in crisis no matter what their gender. But boys, especially in this day and age, I think, are living through something I don't think boys ever lived through before. First of all, we live in a kind of an information age. Yeah. What has been the calling card of men for years, brawn, is not valued anymore as much. I mean, there's controversy about the Secret Service people who were guarding Trump, because some people say it shouldn't have been women because they were a foot shorter than him. And so that's not the best if you're trying to block a bullet from getting to the president. And kids like that, I'm not saying he did this for this reason, but they see like, wow, even the jobs we used to be better at, like being taller. We can't even get those jobs anymore. I mean,
hey man.
But
yeah, I think there's a loneliness epidemic happening now, and you've talked about this many times, of social media being kind of at the heart of it.
Yes.
One of the benefits of religion, I think, is that at least people are getting out of the house, coming together in a community, and sharing something together, and people can meet there and that kind of thing. When people are isolated, social media, and also the pornification of the culture too, where guys don't have to try as hard to have sex anymore. They can have sex with their phone now, basically. But it's true, honestly. But when you have to work to impress a girl, or put some nice clothes on to go out, even just to a bar, you're being social. There's value to being a social animal. That's how we've lived for all these thousands of years, by being social creatures.
Yeah, I agree with you. Young boys, really the last probably 2 decades in America, we got a real problem. Masculinity is important. It's important for not just cultural reasons. It's important for your development from a boy to a man, to realize what's important, to understand that you have a responsibility to go out there and gather and work hard and earn, and you got to have that grit, that toughness to be a leader, to be a husband, to be a father, whether that's a decision you choose to make in your own personal life. But those traits are important for masculinity and for men. To take them away really hurts not just men, it hurts women as well.
So I'll say this about the...
Yeah, and I agree with Byron there. The reason we can see DEI being pushed so heavily, and the only reason why it's even accepted or allowed, I shouldn't say accepted, but it's because it's not in most of, I think, our society, which is why there's a culture war going on. But I think the only reason why it's even able to do what it's doing is because the left have captured the institutions, and a lot of these communist type people are pushing DEI, because you look at the Communist Manifesto and a lot of the other, communist teachings and the revolutions in other countries, a lot of the DEI type stuff, it was pushed heavily. And not only, that motivating it, but also just if you think about, like, if you've ever heard the phrase, weak men make hard times strong, and then hard times make strong men make good times, and then good times make weak men, and it's almost like a cycle. I think you look at the fall of the Roman Empire and the Roman Republic, and you see all of the decadence and degeneracy that was going on in their society, and I think it kind of parallels with the United States. And that's why a lot of people compare us to the Roman Empire, and I think the reason for that is you can't have this vanity or this, like, oh, well, masculinity is important for these jobs, but we'll just let women do it. You can't have that when there's real danger and real threat to the society. But when everything is so stable, and like the threat to the United States as a country is so low in terms of like external threats, that kind of just, who cares? We'll just do it anyways. That's the only reason why that is allowed. And as things get harder, the hard times, it requires men to be strong. And it will create strong men, just like that saying says. And eventually those strong men, through, I don't want to say suffering, but just through the fact that they have to work and bust their butts to make good times again, they will eventually make good times. And I think we're on the tail end of the good times. And right now, the weak men that were created during the good times of, the post World War II era, they've made these hard times that we're coming upon. The cultural stagnation and the cultural fracturing and the infighting, and it's just like he's talking about, it's a lot of weak men. And I think masculinity is extremely important. I don't think it's the ultimate, but I think there's a balance that's required between masculinity and femininity. And I think the fact that femininity has been allowed to be, I won't say dominant, but just pushed heavily as the focus, has got us culturally where we are now, and why it's where we have all these weak men who are struggling. And I think that is a very important thing to focus on. But let's see what Bill Maher has to say.
One last thing. Although I don't think it's fair to put the shooter in this particular category, because that thing has shown up many times over the past. Remember, Hinckley wanted to impress Jodie Foster,
But
if you look at Lee Harvey Oswald, it's a lot of the same profile as this guy, his personal profile. People that have done these types of acts over the years.
I don't think it's all that. I think Lee Harvey Oswald was political. I mean, he was in Russia.
We don't know which side, though, either. Yeah.
Well, yes. I mean, it's a little murky. I mean, he did purposely go to Russia. He married a Russian woman.
Right.
He was involved with the Communist Party. Yeah. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah.
But this kid, I mean, all they know is that he was looking at stuff about Biden as well as Trump. I think he would have shot whoever showed up that day.
I think that's a goofy thing to assume, especially considering the evidence of the kid donating to Act Blue and then registering as a Republican. What 20-year-old is out there registering for any political party or donating to a political party in this kind of economy where it's so hard to make money? That seems like somebody who's at least semi-politically motivated. And then you look at the fact that the rhetoric on the mainstream media for the last decade has been, constant screaming about how, the world is ending and how President Trump is, the next Hitler and all these crazy things. I think it's blatantly obvious that a kid who's 20 years old will be motivated. I mean, he was 12 when Trump came into the political scene, which means that since he was 12 years old, he would be hearing, he's been hearing screaming, or I should say was hearing screaming, now that his pronouns are were. He was hearing screaming constantly and, being told over and over and over again, if he was watching the news or had, his parents had the news on the background, that the world was ending and that Trump was going to destroy the country and take down democracy and all these crazy things that I think would easily radicalize a kid. I mean, you look at the way, extremist groups around the world radicalize young men, and I don't think it's surprising at all. And I think Bill Maher's kind of a clown for thinking that it makes no sense to be political. I think that's this narrative that he's pushing right now, that it's just some crazy kid. Yeah, he was crazy for sure. He did what he did. It's obvious he's crazy, but they really want to downplay the idea that it was politically motivated because they don't want any blame being put on the mainstream media, because he's a part of that leftist, elite class of people who control the narrative to some degree, in some way, have a slice of the pie when it comes to determining the narrative. And so they really don't like the idea that them just, calling this guy Hitler for years has anything to do with, has any real world consequences. They don't want that. Or real world consequences in terms of hurting them. They're fine when it hurts other people, but not when it hurts the Democratic Party or the people in power or themselves. When that happens, then they start deflecting, and that's exactly what Bill Maher's trying to do here. He's trying to deflect.
Yeah, it's like the kid who shot the people in the movie theater.
Yeah.
Or, Columbine and some of these other things, some of these profiles of kids. But yeah, it's not a big disagreement. I'm just pointing out some of these profiles there.
All right. What do you think, what are your thoughts, panel, on NBC pulling Morning Joe, from the air?
Anyways, they're going to get into some stuff that's not really relevant to the conversation, talking about pulling Morning Joe over the assassination. That's what I wanted to show you guys. I just wanted to show you that Bill Maher he's making a clown of himself because he's going out there and doing what the rest of the mainstream media is doing, and he's just deflecting. And it's sad. It's sad to see, because every now and then Bill Maher will say something that sounds like he's seeing the light finally, or finally kind of starting to critically think about what's going on and realize that everything's not the way he thought it was, and that maybe there are a lot of bad actors on the left, and then there's bad actors on the right too. There is. The right's not perfect, but then he goes and does something like this, and he wants to shame Byron Donalds for thinking that maybe God was involved when Byron's a religious man, and it's shameful that he would sit there and judge a man for that. And then at the same time, try to claim that there's no way this kid was political in any way, even though he, as a 20-year-old, donated and did all the things that he did. And it's silly. It's extremely silly. But anyways, I'll cut it here. We're about to hit the 20-minute mark. I really appreciate you guys if you watch this far, and if you enjoy this kind of content, please like and subscribe or comment down below. Even if you just want to tear me apart in the comments and tell me my content sucks, that is perfectly fine. I'm okay with that, and I will engage with you. Anyways, guys, I will be back for another video in the morning, and I really appreciate it again, and hope all of you have a fantastic evening and are ready for the work week. And I will talk to you guys later.